So one thing I want to talk about here before we get started with the other tutorials is that if you remember, I think it was episode 1 of Houdini 16, tips and tricks episodes, I talked about the test geometry, and we have something new here, which is called Crag up here, this test geometry Crag. So I'll left click on that, press return to add that to my scene. And you might be familiar with this if you've watched some of the previous Houdini trailers, and this guy is animated. Okay. So it's a really nice new object that we have to play with that already has animations and that we can test our scenes with. If you are new to Houdini, you might wonder how can we get rid of this thing here, that red thing in this right in the center of our scenes, which is called a Gnomon or something like that. I'm not English. And what's useful about that thing, as you can see, it stays right in the center of our scene. And notice also that we have this right here, right at the bottom left corner of our scenes. As I move around, that thing will show us, basically keep us oriented. So Y is up, Z left and right, current X forward, backwards, and so on. So it keeps us oriented. Now this Gnomon thing in the center of our world is similar, keeps us oriented, and it shows us the center, of the world. And this is useful if I'll just go into the settings again to the right here. If you scroll all the way down, you have display settings, or display options. Click on that, or you can press D on the keyboard to get that as well. And in the background tab, if you switch that to dark, okay, it's easy to see this now. Now, for the most part, maybe you don't like that thing there, right? So I'll just switch back to light. And you also have gray. I'll just switch back to light. I talked about this previously. If you go to guides, in the guides tab, you have this origin Gnomon. Okay, so left click on that, and that will turn it on and off. And I'll just turn off the grid. And so this might be irritating to you in some situations, especially if you are new and you're not used to this and you want to get rid of it. It's this thing, origin Gnomon. Turn it on and off here, okay? I would like to mention you can also turn off this floating Gnomon. So basically that 3D compass that moves around as we navigate to keep ourselves oriented. Right, I'll just turn off the reference plane here, so you can see that right there. And of course this origin Gnomon, which we just talked about, is right there in the center of our world. So I'll go back into the display options. Under guides, we saw that we can turn off the Gnomon, the origin Gnomon. Okay, it's that one right there. And the floating Gnomon is that one, the bottom left corner right there. Okay, you can toggle that right here. I prefer to keep this on, since that keeps me oriented. But you can see that you can turn it on and off here. And once again, you can revert to default if you need to do that down here. Okay. We now have options to bookmark the view, the current scene view. And we also have bookmarks now for our construction plane grid. So I'll just add some geometry in here. And maybe some more geometry over here. I'll frame up on this thing. We have a few options. You can press and hold control. So I'm currently in the view tool, right? So press and hold control, and from 6 to 9. So I'll control 6. So this quick view 1 here. Select my test geometry, my P8 test geometry, go on my viewport, spacebar F to frame up on that. And I'll press Control and 9 maybe. Just so you can see you have those two options. Now I can press 6 to go to this quick view here. Okay, 9 to go to the other one. And of course you have 7 and 8 as well. So Control 7. So now I have these few views. So we talked about similar quick views in the network view in some of the Houdini 16.5 videos. Okay, I'll turn on my grid, the construction plane grid. I'll just turn off this reference plane for now, and I'll turn on the construction plane handles and make sure I'm in the handle actually, handle active. So I can press enter for that. I'll just click on the handle tool and I'll just move the pig head out of the way, and we see the handles for the grid here. You can move around. And we see the handle is active, but we actually have to go into the construction plane state. And to do that, we can tap the / key. And you'll see my other handles are grayed out now. And we now have these extra handles that are like snapping handles, basically, which we'll also talk about in this lesson later on. But we are now basically in the construction plane state. And with the construction plane set up like this now, what I can do is I can press Ctrl and 6, and you'll see it saves Quickplane 1, and maybe I'll rotate it somewhere else. Rotate it like this, maybe Ctrl 7, and that will again save that. And now I can just press 6 or 7 to flick through those states, basically those setups of my construction plane. But again, note that you need to be in the construction plane state, pressing the /. If I press / now, it will exit that state. My other handles will now become visible again, and it's not grayed out anymore. And if I press 6 now, when I'm in the view tool here, I'll change my view, actually, my quick marks for my view, and not my construction plane. So spacebar H, I'll just go back to my home here, and I'll reset my grid to the defaults. And if I press again 6 or 7, this will not help me. I have to be in the construction plane state. So again, / brings up this handle here, and 6 or 7 will load that. I'll exit that mode, and pressing 6 or 7 again will load the views. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to basically saving out a view, quick view, using Ctrl 6, 7 or 8. Or you have to press, if you're not in the view tool, again you have to press spacebar. So if I'm in the handle tool, for example, what do I have left? 8 maybe. So I can press spacebar to enter that view tool temporarily, and then Ctrl and 8 to save the quick view. Okay, so now I have 3 of those. So I can just go and flick through them now using 6, 7, 8 and 9. Spacebar H will frame up again, and I'll just revert to defaults. And why is all of this stuff useful? Well, if we go and add some geometry in here, I'll just add this thing in here and maybe scale it up slightly so you can see what's going on, flat wire shaded maybe. And we now have this method of snapping our construction plane to underlining geometry. And this allows us to use some of the new tools, such as the polydraw tool, to then draw out on that construction plane. What I want to do now is I want to look at the new handle. So we can enter the new construction plane state, basically, which will give us this new handles setup with these cubes, basically. But what this allows us to do is, in that mode, again, with that, if you just have the handles active like we do here, that won't happen. You won't see this preview of the snapping. So even if you have this active, if you don't have that active, the tool handle active, the construction plane handle active, you will still see this dot, basically, almost like a normal preview that will show you where you will align that thing. So if I click somewhere, over here maybe, over there, that will align my construction plane onto that geometry. Now if I add a box in here, again like I mentioned, the tools respect the construction plane in Houdini, and the same thing happens when you press shift. So press and hold shift to move that up and down, right, and that respects the construction plane. Same thing with the new poly draw tool, that will respect the construction plane. And with the setup, I can press the / button again to turn off the construction plane state, and I'll turn on something like grid snapping and the poly draw tool, and I can come in here and start to draw out geometry. Press escape, and we can now extend edges and stuff like that. So that's a new poly draw tool, which basically is derived from TopoBuild. It's also a new tool in Houdini 17. Okay, next I want to talk about a few more basic things that I could have discussed in some of the previous episodes, but I still think these are useful to beginners. And this series again is aimed at beginners anyway. So the first is in the render view, we have the ability to snap some of our previous renders. And in this way we can flick and go through them basically, and you can save them out and so forth. So to demonstrate this, what I'll do is you add some geometry to your scene to render, set up your scene, whatever it is that you want to render. In this case, I'll just add cube maybe, and I'll add a camera. So from my lights and cameras, press and hold control, left click on camera. So that's cam 1. In my render view, I'll set my camera up to cam 1. In the render dropdown, I'll create a render node, mantra, PBR, and I'll select that here, and I'll render this. The point simply is that we can now snap this, so you can give it a name here in this box, and you can click this button to create a snap. So it says add image to history. So I'll left click on that, and now we have this image in here. Okay. So what this means is if I now change settings on this, or I go into my scene, I'll delete this box, and instead I'll add a torus or something else. Back in my render view, this will now render. You can stop and just click render, to render your scene, or you can have it, render progressively. So as you make a change, it'll keep rendering. Okay, so now that's finished, and I'll create another snap. So snap 2 in this case, I'll click snap, and now I can stop this. I can click stop to stop that render, and I can now go back and forth between my snaps. Snap 1, snap 2. Okay. And here you have options to save this. So save the current IPR render progress. And you also have the option to toggle autosave at a specified time interval in seconds. Okay. So you have quite a few options here. You have this drop down to change between the active render, which is what we have going here now, but nothing's rendering right now. And then you have the different snaps. And of course you can call it something else. So I'll do this again with, maybe I'll add a spear in there as well. Click render. And with this done, I'll rename this something else. Press enter, and I'll click to add this image. And you'll see it actually increments that. So it's now 2. So if I click this now, it'll save another one called UFO2. Okay, so I can now switch between these. And you have an active render, which I'll just stop. So that's a quick look at capturing. Okay, adding image history. Again, you can save them out, clicking the save render. And you have other options here like this, toggle autosave as well, which I won't demonstrate here, but it's easy to set up. You just click it here and then toggle and change, the seconds. Finally, also something I could have mentioned in the first episode is that you can change node colors and shapes. This makes it easy to identify them, especially if you have many nodes in one of these containers. So for example, you can change the color. Let's say I want to highlight the start of my network where I basically select the geometry I want to use to operate on. You can maybe change that to blue or something, right? And then maybe your output, your final node, maybe you want to change that to something like red. And you can also change the shape of nodes. So that would be here. And the shortcuts for this is C. So C for the color palette. Okay, that will bring up this color palette. You select the node, left click on it, and then select the color by simply clicking on the color you want. You can also right click and add color, edit color, and all of that. So edit color, maybe something like that. Yeah, actually, if you do edit color and you change the color, you want to click OK. If you just exit out of this, it won't accept that change. So you want to edit and select another color and then click OK. And then you have Z, which is the shape palette. That is Z. Again, C for the color palette and Z for the shape palette. And you again select the node you want to change. Also do note you can scale this thing up to see, your shapes. So maybe this is an input, maybe a file, right, from your hard drive. Maybe you downloaded an object, some sculpt or 3D scan thing that you want to work on. So maybe you can change that to something that looks like a file, something like that, maybe like this. And your output, maybe you want to have something like this, which looks like a null or something, or maybe a weirder shape like that. Okay, so it all depends on you. You can actually create custom themes, which we won't get into this. I don't do that myself, but you can do that in Houdini. So yeah, that's a quick look at changing the node colors and the node shapes.